baby, listen to the speaker. No matter what, just say the word. I'm loving all I see.
Pop, Perswayable. It is finally here, ladies and gentlemen. I am finally working on the character tier list. This can take me over 20 hours to compile. And it's a lot of information. It's a lot of stats that we run in the background. And I actually want to show you the in-depth detail that we do just for one character. So this entire video is just for one character. And it's really trying to figure out where Dancer is going to belong. And one of the problems is that we know that Dancer has a 10% debuff to her decode. And we know that the general rule of thumb is that debuff to decoding is bad, except in cases such as the Mercenary. There's a difference between a static and a dynamic debuff. Static is kind of like Mercenaries, where it's 25% all the time, and a dynamic is like Coordinator, where it's only affected in certain circumstances. In the case of Coordinator, it would be when somebody is on the rocket chair. But in the case of Dancer, we wanted to really figure out how significant is her debuff decoded, because we know that it's technically a static number, right? It's 10% debuff at all times. But we wanted to know how much can we reduce this by if we use our attack speed or the red little music box. So what we did is we decided to, kind of run data on all across the characters to really see how fast they're decoded now, especially early game. Now, this isn't really perfect methodology. We really just wanted to use this as a reference point. Now, this video is going to be relatively boring for a lot of you. It's just going to be really seeing characters decoded and me talking over it. So what I'll do is hopefully I can do a too lazy didn't read in the YouTube description if you don't really want to watch this. But I hope that if you want to get a little bit more information out of the character tier list and how we do this, you'll watch the video. All right, so what we first did is we decided to decode with the Thief, right? That's my OG character. If anyone remembers in our first character tier list, it caused a lot of controversy because this was back in July when everybody thought Thief was the worst character in the game, when in reality, all of us high tiers were using him. So we came out with that character tier list. And so it was kind of funny to use him again and just to see how fast he decodes. And we ended up seeing that he decodes around 73.5 seconds. That's with one missed perfect calibration. The reason why I included that is because we're not always going to hit the perfect calibrations. So I just kind of wanted to put one missed one in there. And that's been nerfed recently, perfect calibrations. I think about 3 or 4 updates ago, their status effect has been decreased. So hitting a perfect calibration isn't as beneficial as what it used to be. But we remember that with the Thief, he increases the amount of perfect calibrations or the amount of calibrations that exist. So he actually decodes about 1 second faster than characters such as Seer and Magician. Remember, characters that activate calibrations more technically decode faster because they can hit more perfects. So we saw about a 1 second differential with one missed perfect calibration to make sure that we could compare those two. All right. So really what this video is about is really seeing what that Dancer can do. How fast, how much can we reduce that 10% by using her red boxes? Because one of the things is that I may have to make another Dancer guide. But one of the things is that when you know somebody else is starting to kite in your game, that's when you want to put a red box down. Because if you can put a red box down, you can decrease the amount of decoding. And really, that's what we wanted to figure out. And so with this methodology here, I made sure that nobody was near me. And I made sure that I went frame for frame, so each person starts around the same time. Okay, and they also stop decoding at the same time. So these numbers are rough estimates, right? And we see that she's about 84.4 seconds, right? So she's about 10 seconds slower, relatively. We'll give it about 10 seconds when we're not using any boxes, which kind of makes sense because she has a 10% decoding debuff. And we'll use those numbers relatively, right? We're not going to say that these are concrete numbers. We would need much more consistent methodology that I did not try to plan for. And I would also have to put this in a computer and go down to the nanosecond exactly at the same time. So these are relatively estimates just to really kind of highlight how fast the Dancer is going to decode. But what's really interesting with the dancer is that she has incredible kiting potential. She counters the spider. She can kind of counter the ripper. She can counter a lot of these hunters with her music boxes. So her early game kiting, many top tiers will tell you it's very good. But the reason why we don't use her compared to, let's say, Perfumer and Seer is because Perfumer and Seer doesn't have a decode debuff, right? So really, I wanted to see what was that effect with the decode debuff, and we realized that when we use one music box, it goes down to about 78.4 seconds. All right, so that's about 6 seconds faster by using one red box. So when you compare that to characters such as the Seer, right, you're talking about only a 4-second differential, which really isn't that bad in the case of using your red box when you realize that somebody isn't going to come after you. Now, there's a little bit of a flaw with this methodology, and that is that you're not going to use your red box right away. You don't know if the hunter is coming after you. And what I mean by that, just to elaborate, is that with this methodology, what we're doing is it's under the assumption that you put down a box right away. In real matches, you don't do that. In real matches, you decode normally with the dancer because you don't know if the hunter is going to stumble upon you, right? You don't want to start wasting boxes if the hunter starts chasing you, and you need your slow boxes because that's what makes the dancer a really good kiter. So we acknowledge that. I acknowledge that. But really, I just wanted to see the flat rates, and what we're really seeing is just a 4-second differential. So we decided, hey, what happens if I put all three boxes down? And we see that it does get significantly reduced to 69.7 seconds. That doesn't necessarily mean, however, that each box is going to reduce it by 6 seconds, right? We saw one box at around that 79, 78 level, and no boxes at that 84 level, right? So that means that the more boxes you use on top of each other, although they do stack, it's not at a 6-second stack rate, right? Because then that would be 18%, or rather 18 seconds, 6, 12, 18, 6 per box. So it still reduces it substantially. It's not as fast as a mind's eye. But the problem with this is that it also takes 6 seconds, right? So you put down a box, takes 6 seconds, and you can put down a second box. And that's really never advisable. But we really wanted to just see what that potential would be like. It's still probably better only to put one box down, just because you can use your slow boxes even at endgame near the gate. In certain circumstances, there's a certain way that you're supposed to do that. And just as kind of like a cherry on the cake, we decided to do a mind's eye. She's about 62.3 seconds. I actually did 2 of these. I did one here, and then I did another one, and it was 62.3 seconds both times on separate ciphers, which was pretty interesting. So the problem is that Perfumer is actually pretty good. She's a really good kiter. She can counter a whole bunch of different hunters. She can counter Spider to a degree. She can counter the Ripper. She can counter, to a degree, the Clown. Geisha will be a little bit of a problem with her, but I can still use it with tight kiting. So she's really good. Her kiting potential early game is really, really good, okay? The problem is that 10% debuff really shies everybody away, and there's a good reason for that. And the reason being so is that you have good characters who have decent potential like the dancer does, where we see that if you just use a simple red box, you're only having a 5% decode debuff, which isn't really that bad. It's not that bad. It's worth it. The problem is that you have other survivors who are significantly overpowered, such as the Perfumer, and you have characters who can just throw an owl at anyone's face, like the Seer. So it's not that the dancer isn't good, it's that the other characters are too good. And when I come out with the third character tier list, the official one that we end up doing, you're going to see that she's probably going to hover around a B tier, and that's because we need to compare her to other characters. And although I usually operationalize B tier or higher as rank-worthy characters on all competitive levels, she's definitely rank-worthy, and she is good. And although that dancer is going to have a negative consequence as more people die, usually in high-tier matches, it doesn't necessarily work out that way. So there is a consequence to using her, and that's the consequence that we see with Seer. to a degree with his owl usage, and that's why Perfumer needs to be nerfed. There's no real consequence to her. There are theoretical ones, but not enough to scare us away. Anyways, I wanted to show you part of the methodology process and some of the decoding speeds. That now means that Dancer realistically is at a 95% decoding value, and we should still consider her rank worthy. Have a good day, guys. Thank you for watching.